If you are new to this channel, Kate and I share a deep appreciation for the outdoors and the overlanding lifestyle. We also have a passionate regard for the rich history and heritage of the Ozark region. We define the term overlanding with this primary principle: be self-reliant on a journey to a remote destination while the experiences encountered are the primary goal. Join us as we journey into the history of the Ozark frontier.
What does overlanding have to do with Ozark frontier and the history of the Ozarks, you say? If you truly appreciate the beauty of the Ozark National Forest, iconic landmarks like the Union Schoolhouse, Bub's Cabin, Ozark General Store, then you should stick around. We are thrilled to dedicate this video to the heritage and the history of the Ozarks that we love so much. Jason and I believe wholeheartedly that without any historical context, these hidden secrets that we all seek are just old structures, and they will disappear like history often does.
What is the Ozarks? It extends from St. Louis, Missouri to Fort Smith, Arkansas, across all of southern Missouri and northern Arkansas. You absolutely must recognize the very first overlanders, the indigenous people who were native to this land long before Europeans impacted their way of life. Many nations of indigenous people inhabited the Ozark area after traveling faraway lands over hundreds of years. You might find it interesting to know that the area that is now St. Louis housed an ancient civilization that could rival the Aztecs and possibly the Mayan civilization. The Cahokia Mounds northeast of St. Louis is the largest pre-Columbian settlement north of Mexico, which occurred between 800 and 1400 AD. Many other tribes of Native Americans, such as Chickasaw, Kickapoo, Osage, Quapaw, and others, settled this area as their home long before Toyotas, Jeeps, and other off-road vehicles roamed around the Ozark Mountains, and long before the Europeans came here. The Osage Nation was the primary inhabitants of the Ozarks. Their way of life was greatly impacted by the beginnings of colonial settlements in North America and sadly forced to be removed from their homeland as part of the westward expansion of the colonial states in the mid to early 1800s. That is a rabbit hole topic that we're not going to chase in this video. However, Kate and I do encourage you to visit the First Americans Museum in Oklahoma City, which we had the privilege to visit recently, as well as the Museum of Native American History in Bentonville, Arkansas. You can learn more and see wonderful exhibits about the indigenous people of our nation, and we highly encourage it. In the early to mid-1800s, most of the early adventurers searched for tangible materials and resources that could be cultivated, sold, or traded. The area of Springfield, Missouri was once used for mining lead, way before it was ever settled as a city. Other resources were utilized such as wild game, other various minerals, and logging. Early immigrants and pioneers, after having lived in Kentucky, Tennessee, and the Carolinas, decided to push westwards. They came to the area in search of new adventure, experiences, and a new way of life. Dreaming of unbridled possibilities was intoxicating to immigrants from Ireland, Scotland, England, and other countries. When they arrived to the early colonies, there was nothing stopping them from moving westward. If you recall in high school history classes, the U.S. government offered promises of land to early pioneers. Some traveled on foot, and some traveled by a wood wagon pulled by mules and horses. You simply had to claim it and get there before anyone else. This was known as the Westward Expansion Movement.
Historically, Traveling overland to a new territory full of open potential and a better way of life was captivating and life-inspiring. Some traveled on foot and some traveled by wooden wagon pulled by oxen, mules, or horses. There were no roads, no Gaia GPS, no maps, no Siri to ask for help. More importantly, there were no established roads for trails or wagons until the late 1800s. But the idea of overland travel to a new and abundant territory was worth all the risks.
One must realize a lot of these trails we enjoy were hand-cut and formed by the original quote-unquote overlanders, better known as frontiersmen and pioneers. Can you imagine crossing the Big Piney, the Mulberry, or the Illinois Bayou in a wood-spoke wheeled wagon? A lot of these trails are well over 100 years old, established wagon routes which eventually turned into logging trails, and finally resulting in Forest Service roads that we enjoy today. Imagine going through some of these rocky, off-camber sections with large rocks, boulders, while trying to control a stubborn mule and a wood wagon, using only wood-spoked wheels with no suspension that allowed for great articulation. To me, that is hardcore overlanding. Places like Bub's Cabin is possibly the most well-preserved late 1800s to mid-20th century homestead. Kate and I recently stumbled upon a hidden homestead in one of our recent outings, known as the Muldoon Cabin. These homes were built by hand and often by 1 to 2 men, hand-stacked stone and hand-cut logs. They were built out of necessity, crafted with hard, back-breaking labor, and they were formed by the people that were forged out of hard times and doing their best to thrive and for the sake of survival.
Today, we use Gaia GPS, cell phone boosters, satellite communicators, GMRS radios, Starlink internet, and more stuff than we possibly need. These folks had nothing but hand tools and pure grit. They would laugh so hard at us today with our scottles and fancy bags full of comfort gear.
During this period of the Ozarks, the railroad companies thrived due to westward expansion. The beginning of the industrial age and need for railroad tracks across the nation was in very high demand. The lush forests of the Ozarks provided plenty of lumber, but it was a hard territory to get the timber in and out of the forest. So early homesteaders and settlers cut the timber into what is known as cross ties, which are typically used as the foundation and structural connection between railroad iron as the assembly that trains travel across. The labor was intense. The pay was dirt poor, and in our research, it was said that a man could receive up to 25 cents a day for having hand-cut 15 to 17 cross ties per day. That is astounding to me to think of in modern times as comparison. All of these cross ties were hand-cut by a man swinging an axe. The back-breaking labor was incredible. The terrain in the mountains was not suited for large farming. It was rocky and a rough terrain, and the soil would only allow small crops to support a single family. So between cutting lumber, building log homes, maintaining livestock, and farming, an average homesteader required labor from sunup to sundown.
Pioneer women heavily contributed to the homestead by plowing fields, tending and feeding livestock, cooking all the meals, raising and educating children, growing and processing cotton, or raising sheep for wool to produce fabrics and clothing, making soap from scratch. Also helping construct those massive amounts of stone walls that are scattered all across the Ozarks. And they did this all while wearing 3 or 4 layers of clothing, even during hot summer months. While the men were primarily protectors and providers, the women typically worked equally or harder to keep a homestead surviving. As time moves forward, leaving behind no traces of the struggles and hardships that these hardened people endured. We must learn from history, teach it to future generations, so they can appreciate the luxuries that they take for granted every day. Bringing it full circle, how is this relevant to current overlanding? Well, we all enjoy the same scenery, hints of a time gone by, and the concept of being remote and independent. Historical or modern day, it's a search for something new, views we've never seen before, better lives, and fresh experiences. History is sadly disappearing slowly as time moves forward.
Sometimes you come across interesting things in the Ozarks. Take, for instance, this cemetery. We stopped to air up tires and noticed this old cemetery. It's like, let's just air up right here. Kate and I are kind of weird that way, that we like stopping at old cemeteries and looking at the names and dates, because these were people just like you and me that lived a long time ago, making their way through life. And as I point to that's a stone marker. No initials. They were too poor. Stone marker. Another stone marker. All of these are just raw, natural stone. No telling how old some of these dates go back. Over in the far corner with the American flag is a Civil War soldier, and you'll see that here in a moment. But it looks like this was the Bethel family. Bethel and I think Claiborne was some of the names we saw. Here's a Civil War soldier, Corporal Thomas Bethel, Company C, 1st Arkansas Infantry.
That's a military issue.
Yeah, it is. We feel strongly that the overlanding community has a duty to assist in the preservation of the landmarks and the history of this area that we all enjoy. something Bethel. Oops, sorry. Laura G. Bethel, 1876, 1895. From leaving no trace to tread lightly, we need to be the advocates and the stewards of this historically rich area so the future generations can enjoy it as we do. If we do not, their remaining legacy and history will die. Yes, we field pioneers and indigenous overlanders align with the primary concept, being self-reliant during a journey to a remote destination. Both of these groups survived and traveled out of necessity while also seeking new ways of life and new experiences. The Ozarks continue to be a remote land full of beauty, resources, and hope. So few of these scattered homesteads or schools from these determined people remain. Even fewer are structurally stable or maintained by current owners. To what Kate and I refer to as the Busch Light Mafia, we beg you to leave it cleaner than you found it. Stop littering your beer cans, leaving your trash at camp. Please. So we hope you enjoyed watching our video, which was our take on history of this Ozark region and how we kind of compare and contrast overlanders with the frontier history and all the way back to the indigenous peoples. Because if you read the definition we had at the beginning, it meets the core value of what overlanding is. I think most people think of overlanding as like safari travel originally and going out and having fun and camping on the weekends. But being self-sufficient and going on a distant journey and trying to have new experiences, that's what it's all about. So Kate, when I first met her, she used to do reenactments, and we were trying to figure out a way to tie some of this in because both of us are big history buffs and we have a huge appreciation for the history of the Ozarks. So this was our attempt at trying to have basically having our appreciation for history come through in a video.
It'll pay homage to those that came before us.
Yes, and if you made it all the way to the end, you will see our plea and begging for people to try to get more involved and keep it cleaner than you found it. You know, leave no trace, no carvings, no, spray painting your names, no leaving beer cans, Bud Light, Busch Light, whatever your brand is, just and beanie weenie cans in fire pits.
And socks.
Yeah. And
dirty socks. Dirty socks, yes. It's disgusting.
And all kinds of stuff. So
like nature isn't a trash can. Pick it up.
So we do have a very nice last US bag that we hang off our spare tire for our trash. Not only do we take our trash, but we take other people's trash. So we encourage you to do the same. Take other people's trash with you. Leave it cleaner than you found it. So again, if you can hit the like and subscribe, we'd appreciate it. And also, if you want to follow us more on our channel, you click the video down below on that side. And if you want to watch one of our previous videos, you can click the one that's down there on the other side. And hopefully I can get the YouTube links to work.
Yay!
Thanks for watching, everyone.